connecting a bit late. Okay, so all right. I'm so sorry. Have quite a lot to put together, and I just thought to share some things with you. Seeing that I just finished with a client that was so confused about the whole boundaries issue, and so I thought to, just share some things with you, and let's see how it goes. So, are you with me? Let's go. Let's go. I think we're ready. We're ready to go. Yeah. So don't move again. So as usual, once you join us, you just let us know where you're joining us from and why you're here. And when we're done, you can just send your topics, send your questions. Let's talk about your challenges together. Of course, that's why we're here. Okay? All right. All right. All right. So I want to get right into it. Have you ever wondered why sometimes it's like it's hard to set boundaries, it's hard to set limits? You maybe for some people you may even have colleagues that are having that challenge, and things around boundaries, it seems like they don't understand it, or you don't even understand it, or you may not even know that there are issues around setting boundaries. So today I just want us to look at some myths, things that I'm just going to be sharing, we're just going to be talking at some myths around boundaries and boundary issues. Really, I've seen quite a lot. I've seen quite a lot and I've heard quite a lot. So I just wanted to share with us some of the things that, I've seen with my clients. So now I want to get right into it so that I don't take too much time. The first myth I want to share with you today is the myth that if I set boundaries, I'm being selfish. Hmm. This one is really, I won't say it's a big one, but it's something that I've noticed with a lot of us. That feeling that if I set boundaries, I am being selfish. I'm being self-centered. I'm not, you know, I'm only thinking about myself. I'm not thinking about the other person and all. That's not true. That's not what boundaries are about. Boundaries are about saying, this is me, this is where I end, and this is where you begin. So it's not a place for you to put your needs down. It's a place for you to put your needs first. Like, think about your needs. Understand that your needs are your responsibility and the other person's needs are their responsibility. There are places where their boundaries meet with your boundaries, or where there is interaction. Obviously there are times when you need to say, hey, I'm here to support you, but it's not carrying the other person's load, neither is it dumping your own load or your responsibilities on the other person. So when you're setting boundaries, you're saying, these are my limits. This is where my fence lies. This is how far I can go. This is how far I can take. Because if you overload yourself, if you take much more than you can handle, it becomes a problem in the long run. So setting boundaries does not mean you are selfish. It just means that you are taking responsibility for yourself, taking responsibility for how far you can go, taking responsibility for who you are, what your needs are, and not putting it on someone else or taking up someone else's responsibility. All right. Okay, I can see Kamal and I can see Porky Cream. Oh, really? 16 to you. Thank you for joining. If you have a question, please just send it. The second myth I want to discuss with us is that boundaries are a sign of disobedience, and that's not true. A lot of times we fear that, oh, because of probably some religious upbringing or some cultural upbringing, that when you set boundaries you are being disobedient. And this is often noticed especially in relationships where probably you're talking about someone who is above you, someone who is maybe a leader, a parent, or something that the person has more authority than you do. Boundaries do not mean that you are being disobedient. It's, unwillingness to go along with some certain programs sometimes comes off as you are not you're being disobedient, like these are the instructions, these are the so you see people taking up much more than they can handle. For an example, there are meetings that are set up that is way beyond what you can handle, but because you are unable to say no, I can't take much more, you just keep going at it, and on the outside you're doing it, but on the inside you're hurting and you're breaking down the essence of who you are. So setting boundaries does not mean you are disobedient. It's very important that we get that myth out there. Okay, it doesn't mean that you are being disobedient. The third myth I want to share with us today is that if I begin setting boundaries, I will be hurt by others. And that's it's not it setting boundaries does not mean you will be hurt by others. Actually, they would do things. I mean, setting boundaries is saying this is my territory, this is what I can handle, this is what I can change. Remember I talked about taking responsibility for who you are, right? Taking responsibility for your feelings, taking responsibility for your emotions. So but when you set boundaries, it doesn't mean that you will not be hurt by others, but it does not also mean that they will hurt you. Let me just give an example. you know Usually you may be the kind of person who is a compliant. You can join my boundaries setting course so that I can you can join the course. I'll send the link in the description of the video when I upload it. you know there are people who are compliant, like how they act is the inability to say no. So whatever happens, yes. Good, yes. Bad, yes. The ugly, yes. Every single thing, yes. And they take it up on themselves and it becomes so much and they are unable to handle it over time. So if, for an example, you're a compliant and you get to the point where probably a spouse or a boss keeps breaking your boundaries and you know that it hurts, you know that this person doing this is affecting you. One of the ways that you can reduce the hurt of the action the person is doing. Obviously, there are things you can do to help the person change, but even if the person doesn't change, you know, I mean, it's not your responsibility, but you're taking responsibility by for how you are feeling about that action. So, for an example, you can say, someone keeps probably spilling water all over the floor once they use the bathroom or something. I'm just using that as an example, and they don't clean up after themselves, and it hurts you, like you're unable to express that. One of the things you can do, first of all, is when you're talking with the person, is something that we do in therapy. I encourage, we teach our clients on how to communicate assertively. We call it assertive communication. So using I statements. For an example, I feel hurt when, not you hurt me when. So you see the difference between that myth saying that if you begin setting boundaries, you will be hurt by others. If you begin setting boundaries, you begin to take responsibility for your feelings, for your emotions. So it gets to the point where whatever they do doesn't hurt you as much because you've taken responsibility and you've communicated this. And then you get to the point where you are able to give, um, you know, um, when you're being able to allow the person face the consequences for their action. So if you're the kind of person that like in the example I gave earlier, always want to clean up after that person that spills water everywhere, one of the things you can do by setting boundaries and taking responsibility is saying, I feel hot when you spill water all over the floor. It makes me feel like you do not respect my need for cleanliness or my need for um, an ordered space. So you can say, I would rather that you clean up after yourself. If you're unable to do that, then we probably wouldn't share this space together anymore. And it gets to the point, the first time you remind the person, when the person repeats that action, you remind the person that these are my boundaries. I would rather you clean up. You could even put up a sign post or something there. If the person keeps repeating it, take action. Allow the person face the consequences. And probably it gets to the point where you maybe take away that thing that you said you were going to do, like by way of punishment or something. And when I say punishment, punishment is not restricted or is not limited to beating or whatever. I know I talk with a lot of my African clients, and we see that as well. Punishment is no. There are other things that you can do. You could give the person a time off, or you lock up your space and say, we're not sharing this space anymore until you're able to respect my boundaries. These are things that you can do to let the person know that this is important to you. So at the end of the day, even if they keep repeating it, you've taken responsibility for how you feel, and it will not hurt you as much. So nobody hurts you. Their actions hurt you, or what they do makes you feel hurt. So that emotion of feeling hurt is your own. Own it. I feel hurt. I feel angry. I feel sad. I feel excited. I feel let down. That is your feeling, because someone else may not feel that way. So take responsibility for how you're feeling. The fourth myth that I want to share with us is, if I set boundaries, I will hurt others. The biggest problem sometimes with setting boundaries is fear. Some if you set boundaries, so oftentimes we fear that our limits will injure someone else, and that's someone you would genuinely want to be happy is going to be hurt in the process of you setting your boundaries. And so it's like saying, I'd rather not be happy because I want someone else to be happy. So you see, that's also a boundary problem, and that's one of the reasons why you should join my boundaries setting course, healthy boundaries course. So remember that the problem sometimes that we see boundaries as an offensive weapon. It's not an offensive weapon. Boundaries are a defensive tool. So boundaries are not designed to hurt others. That's not what they are designed to do. They are designed to defend you. In my course, in the course, you will hear and you will understand that boundaries are about keeping the good in and you know keeping the bad out. So even if there is already bad on the inside, it's like a gate, it's like a fenced place with a gate, and you decide what you let walk through that gate and what you let walk out of it. So appropriate boundaries do not control, attack, or hurt anyone. They simply prevent your treasures from being taken at the wrong time. So it's they may when you say no to people or when you say yes to the good, understand that it may look bad at the first time, or it may hurt someone supposedly at the what it seems like is hurting someone, but in the long run, you're protecting yourself. It's not designed as a weapon to hurt anyone. So I see people in relationships and they say, oh, I don't like that this person treats me this way. I don't like the way he talks to me. I don't like that he encroaches on my personal space without my permission. It's like he or she always wants something, and they are hurting from that. So they feel that when they set boundaries, but I love him, oh, but I love her, I don't want to let her down. There are times when you say, I'm sorry, at this point, I can't offer this. These are the things. I would rather that you call me ahead of time to tell me you are coming. I would rather you do this. And in that process, you're bridging the gap of the communication. You're helping the person also learn their boundaries for themselves. and especially for you. So it's not an offensive weapon, it's more of a defensive weapon. The fifth myth about boundaries that I want to share with you is that some people believe that boundaries mean that you are angry or that I am angry. So because I set boundaries, it means I am angry. I don't know if there's anything that can be further from the truth, because boundaries do not cause anger in us. This myth is a misunderstanding of emotions in general and anger specifically. So that's also something that you're going to be learning in my anger management course. The link will be shared in the description. Emotions or feelings have a function. They tell us that there is something going on here. They are like a signal. They are like the thermometer. They measure, they just give you an idea that this is what is going on. Emotions are not a thermostat. They don't determine what is going on. They are just like a signal. I'll say that again. Emotions are like a signal that tell you there is something going on in the environment, or there is something going on within you. It's like hormones are being pumped all around the system, and it's telling you, oh, check up, check, there's something going on here that you need to take note of. So how do you react to this? They help you, they guide your decisions of what possible actions you should take. So if you've not seen my video on how your brain helps you to think, you can just check in the videos and you will see that, check amongst the videos on my channel, Wellness with Hadassah, and you see that video. It tells you, the brain automatically helps you make decisions when it understands how you would rather react in certain circumstances. So it helps free up some space for you to do other things or to have other actions. So you will notice that there are some automated actions that you have, like probably when there is, let me just say, some people are allergic to lizards or something. Once they see a lizard, because maybe in their brains is already primed to make them think, oh, this is a creepy crawly, and there's that reaction, like there's fear and all that. So it's just telling you that there's something going on in the environment that you need to check. Like I said, remember to drop your questions and we're listening to you. So anger tells you that your boundaries have been violated. So when you're angry, it's possible that your boundaries have been violated. Much like a nation's radar, defense system, angry feelings serve as an early warning system. It tells you that you're in danger of being injured or controlled or hurt. So setting boundaries does not mean you are angry. Anger actually just tells you that your boundaries are being infringed on. So if, for an example, in your house you have your alarm system, and in that with that alarm system someone has encroached on your boundary and the alarm begins to blink, it does not mean that because you set boundaries you're angry. um Anger doesn't dissipate automatically. So if the danger occurred 2 minutes ago or 20 years ago, it has to be worked on appropriately, and that's part of what I've shared in my video that I titled how to process your emotions. So when you are able to process this emotion, what exactly happened here? Of course, you also be learning that in the boundaries, setting healthy boundaries course that I talked about. When you're able to process your emotions and say, hey, what's going on here? What's happening? What was done in the environment? What was I feeling? What was I thinking? What happened? What was the action that was done that made me feel this way? You find out that there were some things that were, probably you felt hurt, oppressed, or you felt let down, and that anger surged up to tell you, hey, there is injury in the environment and stuff like that. So setting boundaries does not mean you are angry. It's a misconception based on your emotions. So one of the things that boundaries actually does is that it helps decrease the anger. So setting boundaries actually helps reduce what makes you angry. You say, hey, if you keep getting the room scattered, then you're going to have your time out and you're going to lose this privilege or something. So at the end of the day, you've put it out from yourself, how you react to things that were done. So you've set the boundary, you've set the limit, you've said, hey, this is how I will take it, this is what I will not take. So it's left to the other person to make their choice on how they will act and what consequences they will get from that action. So it goes off from you. Okay, the sixth myth is that when others set boundaries, it injures you. No. Interestingly, having someone say no to your request for support, for an example, leaves a bad taste in your mouth. So, if for an example, you reached out to someone who you thought was going to hold on, was going to always be there for you, and at that point, the person says, oh, I'm sorry, maybe financial support, and the person says, oh, I'm sorry, I'm unable to help at this point, I don't have it, it obviously it may leave a bad taste in your mouth. You may feel hurt and rejected or cold, and it often becomes difficult to conceive of certain limits as being helpful or good. But having to accept the boundaries of others is certainly not pleasant. Obviously, is certainly not pleasant, but you know, none of us enjoys hearing no. When you listen to the boundaries course, you will understand that there are people, but one of the boundary issues as well is not just that you are unable to say no, but there are people who are boundary breakers. Like their own is just that they cannot understand why someone else says no. Why they can't understand. There are some we call manipulators, and also that's one of the things that you would have to, work on. Having inappropriate boundaries set on us can injure us, especially in childhood. When our parents, obviously, or our caregivers at childhood are unable to help us set appropriate boundaries. Sometimes we grow up with injuries, and sometimes we project those injuries onto others. So, of course, boundaries are set. There are things that we learn. There are learned behaviors, obviously, and then there are things that apologies. I had a call coming through. Okay, so apologies. I had a call coming through. So, though we certainly need each other, no. Okay, so very, very important for us to understand. On this note, I want to thank you for joining this live session. Yeah, that's it. And remember to like, subscribe if you haven't, and drop your questions in the comment section. And obviously, I'll come back to get answers for you as soon as I gather as many questions so that we answer more people. If you haven't registered for the course, just in the description box, I'm going to drop the link for you to register for the healthy boundaries setting course. Understand that boundaries are important, and they're for you, they're for me, they're for everyone. If you're having issues setting boundaries, we're available to talk with you, also with the link in the description box. And we're ready to work with you to see how you can, develop the ability and the support system to set healthy boundaries. Thank you for joining us, and stay tuned for other sessions. I hope you learned something. If you did, just tell us what you learned in the comment section. Goodbye.